This Toddversation is brought to you in part by Harvesthold from Verdant Technologies, with promotional consideration from Volcano Produce.
Well, howdy, everybody. How the hell are you doing? I hope you're doing well. That is my hope and wish for everybody today. That everybody's doing well some way, somehow, that some part of your day is a bright spot. Hopefully this broadcast is a bright spot. Hopefully my encouragement for you is a bright spot. I know that I try real hard to make it happen. So welcome. We're glad you're here hanging out with us. We got a fun show today. We're going to talk about marketing. We're going to talk about the future of retail, what's going on, the ups and downs, the economy, all kinds of stuff. I got a guest here that's been a baller in this space for a very, very long time. He and I have crossed paths, started chatting. I thought, man, you got to come up here in this broadcast and just, dump a little wisdom on this world. Don't keep keeping it in your back pocket, charging those clients like that. Come on, we got to share some love out here. So I conned him into coming on and hanging out with me this morning. Let's see what he says when I get all done. Please, everybody, give it up for the founder and president of Fusion, Steve Muro. Sir, welcome to you.
Hey,
and I'm glad you're here.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Todd. I've been a fan for a long time. I'm glad to join you.
Oh, it's an honor to have you. Thank you. It's just, I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to this chat because I think you have such a very unique perspective to share with people. And you've been out running around a long time in this space, probably a lot longer than people think. And you probably, they're going to be like, what? So I look forward to get into. Yeah, no, hey, you and me both, brother. I mean, I some days I feel like I got in line twice. I'm not lying to you. But this is going to be a fun chat. I'm looking forward to this one. I really am. Before we get going, if you wouldn't mind, and I do this with all my guests, if you just give everybody a quick little journey and bio and who you are, because I'd read your CV, but it's so campy when I read it. It's just better it comes from your heart.
Sure. Happy to.
Yeah. Lay it on me, brother.
A grocery has been in my family for ever. Right?
Yeah.
Family-owned grocery chains. My uncles owned a grocery chain. My brothers owned a grocery chain. My father worked in wholesale and in retail. I was a box boy.
Me too.
Yeah, there you go. And then worked my way around and ended up working for I worked for L'Oreal, big company. Right. And I was a director of sales and marketing there. And then went from there to a company called Wella, which was a Procter & Gamble company. And I was a VP of marketing worldwide for one of their divisions. And after many years of that, I decided I wanted to do my own thing. So I started Fusion. And so here we are. And that's sort of a quick take on it.
I love it. Well, I want to get in it because I want to talk a little bit about your past too as well. But, when I got into this and we started talking, I didn't realize this stat. I'm going to open with this because I think it's incredibly powerful. You're probably, are the longest running independent marketing firm that's been in the produce space, if I'm guessing.
Yeah. There have been some that were around and then they disappeared and then they came back. There's been some of that, but we've been continuous for the last 26 years.
Yeah, that's a long track record in marketing, right? And especially in being in the produce space. I mean, it's a sliver of a big pie, right?
Yeah. We've been in produce for 20. We didn't start out strictly in produce, but over time we started collecting produce clients, or they started collecting us, and then before you know it, we are produce focused.
I love it. Well, let's get into it. Let's get everybody, up to speed. Tell everybody what Fusion is and what you all do.
Well, we're a full service marketing agency, but we specialize in retail. So we're a B2B agency specializing in retail. And we're a little different. A lot of times you'll hire a marketing company and they'll come in and they'll say, here's the strategy, here's this, here's that, here's some beautiful ads, and let's go. We start with information. We do research, we do data analysis. And once we have a grip on our client and where they're at in the marketplace in comparison to their competitors, then we can build strategies. Then we can build marketing campaigns and programs. We can execute creative messaging. So what we like to say is invest a little bit up front. Let's find out everything we need to know. And then we will utilize that information 100%. It's sort of like sustainability for research, because we're going to use it in the strategy. We're going to use it in the campaigns. We're going to use it for LinkedIn posts. We're going to use it in sell sheets. We're going to do PR with it. It's going to be throughout everything that we do. So no waste product at the end. We really help our clients maximize their dollar.
Well, absolutely. Well, in this economy, I mean, that's an understatement. I want to back up a little bit, but I do want to get into the data part of this, because I think it's fascinating. I think it's a very unique approach. But I think before I get into that, I want to kind of frame up a little bit more about what Fusion is, but also to lean back into your background, because coming out of somebody like L'Oreal and P&G and in that environment, I mean, data is all over the place. They have floors with nothing but people that just do data, whatever the hell that even means, in their world. But your background, as you brought up, is incredibly gives you a really unique perspective, right? I mean, you've got this family background in the retail side of it, so you can get the ebb and flow of what that is, right? And that's a really interesting position to be in. It's one thing to go shop at a retailer; it's another thing to be inside the office of the ownership of a retailer, the leadership of a retailer. It's a very different world and different conversations there than what you perhaps feel outside. But then, you got this experience going direct to consumer in a lot of ways, and with L'Oreal and P&G. So talk to me a little bit how those two things, or those three, actually, if you throw in P&G and L'Oreal's one each, but how those things shaped you, those experiences shaped you, that kind of has led you to where you are today mentally, and that path that you're on, how you take care of your clients.
Well, I think it's the total understanding of the supply chain from the very beginning all the way through to handing the product to the consumer. Right. And the research has certainly done a lot. And as you mentioned, bigger companies do a lot of research, everything about anything. So it's that understanding of the supply chain that I think makes us unique, and understanding the retail environment. Even when we first started Fusion, I remember going to my brothers who ran a small chain and saying, hey, listen, what would you like to see in terms of information if I was to come to you? And they said, oh, we want to find out what our competitors are doing. How do we fit in with our competitors? Are we outperforming them? So they gave me a whole litany of information that they wanted to see as they were sitting at their desk looking down into the grocery store from that two-way mirror. And right. And so I think it's the ins and outs of the sales and the marketing that has really helped, understanding that it's supply chain. But the other thing is the distinction between sales and marketing. And a lot of times you'll meet people in the industry, not so much today, but when I first started in produce, you'd say, I'm in marketing. And they go, oh, yeah, you create sell sheets. And you go, well, that's not really marketing. That's just a sell sheet.
Right.
So it's understanding that distinction and learning the ins and outs of that. That I think has really made us unique. And it's the understanding of retail, right? So that when we create something for the client, we understand retail. We're not just saying, oh, we also do, we sell Christmas cards, and we sell this and we sell that. We understand retail, we understand produce. And so when we come back to the client, everything we do is really well thought out. With that in mind.
Yeah, no, I love that. Well, and I say this all the time, brands, and marketing itself is like a cloud, right? It's constantly evolving. And I think that any brand that's out there today that's in the same spot today as it was 5 years ago isn't growing, isn't moving.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
You're actually going backwards. If you're not going forward, you're going backwards. Yeah,
100% with that. So I can appreciate where that perspective comes in. And I want to get into, we'll talk a little bit about the data first. I want to get into, because I think it's really unique. And I think it's, to your point, so many people have this perception of it's a sell sheet. Oh, I need a backdrop for a booth. I need, a Christmas gift. And it's so much more than that, because I think that, when I think about, again, a brand as being a cloud, something that's always evolving, which means you have to always be evolving in your thought process as somebody that is a brand leader, somebody that's driving a brand forward. As we just said, complacency will kill every time. So that's you guys have worked with some really iconic brands. There's no two ways about it. You've got a long-standing relationship with the California Avocado Commission, who do an amazing job of getting their message out there today. And you've got other iconic brands that you're working with. So I guess what I want to lean into is talk a little bit is how has research and data propelled these brands, and how have you shaped them a little bit by utilizing that?
Thanks for joining the Todd-versation. And now a word from our sponsor.
Hi, this is Gordon Robertson, CEO of Verdant Technologies. Thank you for listening to Todd-versations. Our innovative post-harvest solution, Harvest Hold Fresh, is a game changer in delivering longer lasting produce from crop to cart. Our patent technology slows the clock, extending the shelf life of fruits and vegetables, helping to preserve them at their peak. By simply inserting a sheet of Harvest Hold Fresh into packaging after harvest, our solution works to significantly reduce waste, deliver return on investment, and offer robust sustainability benefits in the perishable produce supply chain. That's a winning proposition for the grower, the shipper, the retailer, the consumer, and our planet. Contact us today and let us help you change your fresh future with this one sheet wonder. Harvest Hold Fresh from Verdant Technologies.
Well, gosh, it's just it's been terrific, and the first thing I want to say is I would never take credit for the success of each of our clients. Because they've done the heavy lifting. We're a part of that, and
Right.
I'm proud to say yes. We've worked with iconic brands, and incidentally, California Avocados was our very first produce client.
Wow.
26 years ago, and they're still our client today. So I'm pretty proud of that.
I would be too.
So we have used information to help them in a myriad of ways, but I give them total credit because, you can go to a client and say, here's information, here's data, here's what things are suggesting. And you basically, and this is true, you have two types of clients. One looks at it and says, oh, I knew that, or I don't believe that. And then they put it in the drawer.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then they go, well, that research wasn't any good, because they've given all of their preconceptions emphasis over what the research shows, right? And then you've got groups like California Avocados and some of our others like the Hass Avocado Board, who take this information and take action on it. And they'll say, we see what we have to do, and we know exactly where we can use the data. So how do we use it? Well, it's used in so many different ways. We can do a study on segmentation of what clients are buying. When are they buying? How many times a year are they buying? And we could take that in a totally different direction and say, let's go to retailer A, see what they're selling, and show them how their competitors are beating them. Because, a lot of times you'll meet with the retailer and they'll say, hey, man, we're doing fantastic. We're up like 8.5%.
Right.
And because they know their business, retailers know their business like nobody, right? They understand. But what they don't always understand is there are other retailers in the market who maybe are doing 10% increases. So
Right.
they're actually being beaten. So those are the kinds of things that we do for them, from the strategic level, like who's buying, to going into a retailer and actually creating a category review that says, here's how you can improve your turns. Here's how you can improve what you stock, what you sell it for, all of those kinds of things. So I think it's really wide ranging. And once our clients get used to seeing the myriad of ways they can use information and data, they sort of I think, become, I wouldn't say the word addicted, but they understand the power, sort of like a secret weapon.
Well, yeah, a couple of things I want to unpack there a little bit. One of which, when you think about your tenure with Cal Avocado, a lot of times marketing companies are like, a pitcher in the bullpen, right? You're going to get called in to throw a couple of pitches and you're going to get pulled. Maybe you get a full inning, but to have that kind of longevity certainly speaks volumes to what you're talking about and the methodology that you all use, which is, well, I'm sure other companies are, in that same kind of a brain space, but you're literally telling stories now through that data.
That's right.
And I think that that's really interesting. And if you can you share a little bit, maybe, highlight some examples? I know we kind of touched on a little bit, but some of the storytelling the data has brought to you.
Yeah.
Because I think back to, and I go back to this point too, before we fire it up, but talking about people just creating sell sheets, right? So many young companies don't start to see the forest through the trees. Well, I need a sell sheet. Oh, I've got to go to every trade show to get noticed. That's really not the case. It's really not that necessary. It's really not that necessary of a spend. There's other ways to spend money to propel yourself forward. And I think that what you all do is fits to that mold a little bit. Not saying you're not advocating go to a trade show, but I love the storytelling that you can create from data. So if you wouldn't mind, share some examples of that.
Yeah, well, let me tell you a little bit about it. So
Yeah.
why, first of all, I guess. Well, storytelling has been around since the beginning of humankind, right?
Yep.
Right. And for the first millenniums, it was all, this group would tell this group a story. And so it's sort of ingrained in us to understand stories.
Correct.
So when we first started, we were like a lot of other companies. We would say, oh, here's an Excel file chart, and it shows you're up 5% here. And here's another thing over here that shows you're down 2% there. Well, these are just numbers. And so a number's a number, right? But just understanding, you can't really understand from numbers. You need to analyze that and put all of the different pieces together. And once you start putting all of the pieces together, you start to say to yourself, this impacts this, and this impacts that. And now all of a sudden you start to understand the story of what is going on with a brand or with a retailer. And by doing that, now we can take this very complex data, turn it into a simplified story, which is very hard to do.
Right.
Right. Making complex easy is hard. And then we can give it to the client. The client can then share it. Now, let me back up. They can share it with the staff. They can share it with a retailer. They can share it with a lot of people. If it was just numbers and charts, it's meaningless to everybody. But if we can tell a good story about why you should be selling something, more of something, why you should get rid of a product because it's not selling enough to be sustainable. If we can tell those kinds of stories, now the client can take it, share it with the marketing staff, share it with the sales staff, but also share it with all of the other departments. Because now all of a sudden, because we've made it simple and in a story fashion, all of the departments in the organization can understand why we are moving forward in this direction. Instead of saying, well, this is up 5% and this is down 32%, and all of this is a factor of 3.25, and so that's our decision, right? Meaningless.
Right.
So,
it's not playing. Well, it's certainly not playing to a broad audience.
Right. So we like our product to be utilized, I said earlier, to be sustainable. And to make it that sustainable is to make sure that everybody in the organization can benefit by it. That why the decisions were made. Why are we cutting a product? Why are we increasing a price of a product? Why are we changing our pricing strategy? All because of this.
Right. So it's like you're using data to basically create expectations.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's 100%.
Yeah, which is really interesting when you think about it from that perspective. Like again, it's not about, oh, we know we're going to sell a lot of avocados for the Super Bowl, right? That's a no-brainer. I think everybody knows the answer to that, right? But when and why can we sell more? How can we sell? I mean, at that, which is really interesting when you think about, let's just stick with the avocado thing. But you think about avocados for the Super Bowl. It's like, how many more can you possibly sell, right? It's the number one. I mean, it's crazy what goes on, right, for that. But by utilizing that data, you're also saying, at this day is going to be better than that day. And these people, this folks are going to be looking for this and blah, blah, blah. I find that to be really fascinating because, again, it's not about just putting out the sell sheet and a nice little floor block or whatever the case may be in the store, because it's so much more behind that.
Well, and then you can go in and you talk about that Super Bowl, right? And wow, that Super Bowl was great. We sold so many hundreds of millions of pounds, whatever it might be. But then you can say, well, let's take a look at how we did over the last 4 years at Super Bowl. Let's take a look what happened the week before Super Bowl. Let's take a look what happened the week after and the week after that and the week after that. Let's take a look at how sales are up or down in certain weeks. What can we do to bolster certain weeks, right? So what can we do at certain times of the year? Why are people buying certain produce items more in one time of the year than another, even though that product is available on the shelf all year long? And if we see why aren't people buying more at this time of year? Why? We get to that answer. We tell a story about it. We show them. And then all of a sudden you have a new mission. Our mission is to focus on a certain time of year to build sales, because so it's those kinds of things.
Yeah, no, I think it's fascinating. And what I love about this conversation, why I was wanting to have it, is that, I deal with a lot of young companies, a lot of startups, a lot of different people that are doing different stuff, and they all have different paths. But the commonality is that especially young business, like I only have, 50 cents to spend on marketing, right? And so I got to make sure that I'm doing this sell sheet, this different things. I'm thinking, to me, it's like, I think there's more for young companies to digest. And I think what you're presenting and the facts that you're sharing, the fact that, yes, you're spending a little more money up front, but you're also kind of getting a walkway, a pathway to utilize data and what's already known and basically facts, right? As I said, you're creating expectations through data. It's really not a bad runway for a young company to consider, to look at data more than say, I keep picking on a sell sheet, but it's an easy thing to fall back on, but then to create that sell sheet mentality.
Yeah. Well, I'll even tell you a story about a big company, company. And this big company told us, hey, we're going to do this line of products, right? And it was going to be a liquid line. And they said, and we're going to go out and we're going to make headway and we're going to do all these things. And they met with us and we said, well, do you have any background in this? Do you understand the market you're going to be playing in now in these bottled products? And they said, yeah, we know, we understand. We know, we don't need any research for that. We get it. We get it. But they didn't get it. They didn't do the research. And about 6 months later, that line was gone. So the question is, are you willing to roll the dice and invest in research in terms of product research, packaging, advertising, getting your salespeople on the road promoting without really understanding what the opportunities are or where the distribution patterns should be?
Right.
You need to understand all of that before you start creating sell sheets and ads and everything else, right? Years and years ago, had a client and they said, we have $500,000 and we want to spend it in some advertising. And we're only going to be in 2 publications. That's it, just 2. And we're going to really create a demand for our product. And we said, okay, so you want to spend $500,000 for this national publication, 2 of them, and you've only got distribution in this part of the country. So what are you thinking? We're just going to upset people when they don't have the product that we're advertising.
Yeah.
So it's all of those types of things. We're very fortunate. When Zespri first came into the United States, they were looking for opportunities to understand the distribution patterns of the United States. And so we went out and said, these are the markets your salespeople should be focusing on, because these are where the opportunities exist.
Right.
So understanding all of that, as I said before, understanding the complete supply chain is so important. Don't rush to the end, consumer advertising, because you think that's where you need to be successful. That's not the way it works.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, you've got to touch inside before you go outside. There's no 2 ways about it. That you've got to create that runway and that pathway for what you're advocating. And by utilizing the data and the format that you're talking about, it certainly gives you a pretty clear runway. But I think really something too that you touched on too is the spend, right? Yeah. I hear this all the time. It's like, oh, well, here's, to your point, we're going to go spend all this money for 2 publications that you hope somebody reads. It's like, it's like almost like email advertising. Well, yeah, we send out 60,000 emails, but I only get 1% click rate. It's like, how is that a benefit? I mean, granted, maybe that one person out of that 1% is the one person you need to pay for what you just did. But again, for a young brand, that seems like you're going to Vegas hoping to hit snake eyes, right? It's an awfully lofty bet in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And how do they know that their messaging is resonating?
Correct.
Any of those things. How do they know how they fit? Did they go into their local supermarket and see other products and said, okay, we're going to go between these 2 products in terms of pricing? Or do they? Some people do. Yeah, they do. But you actually need a pricing strategy. And the strategy isn't the same in all markets, right? If you're based in Los Angeles and you're shipping stuff off to New York, your pricing strategy may want to be a little different in New York than it is in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I think in a lot of ways, as the industry has grown, it was okay. The box of widgets is $10, no matter where you were. But now the industry has changed. There's a lot more pressure back on folks to manage business for the retailers in a lot of ways, right? Whether you're category captain, whatever you want to call yourself. So I can see where, businesses now need to kind of put some more bullets in the holster when it comes to being able to have deeper, more intelligent conversations with retail. I firmly believe that's why I did a lot of what I did was about the conversations that we had. It's about how do I understand what your, if I don't understand what your issues are, I can't expect you to understand mine. But when we both figure it out and we walk that path together, a lot of great things can happen. And I'm sure the retailers probably embrace that logic in a lot of ways because they want you to do the lifting. Don't get me wrong. Retailers are very happy to have you do lifting.
That's what they want more than anything.
100%. I know it. And I say that in jest, but it's the fact.
Yeah.
Right. So are you becoming a better retail partner by investing in data? Probably are.
Well, and this, you are so spot on there, and this is the other thing that we've seen in the past. New product, exciting new product. And actually we've seen some of these products and we said, God, that's a great idea. That's a fantastic idea. Then they get it into the retailer. It's on the shelf. They're in the produce department. Then you say to the retailer, what are they doing to promote this? Well, nothing. Do you know how to use this product? Not really. Mm-mm. So a lot of times in our industry, not everybody, of course not, but some people still go out and think that the end result is to have your product on shelf. It's not. That's the beginning, is to get on the shelf. That's the beginning of the journey. Right. Now you have to inform everybody how it's used. You've got to create incentives for people to try it, to purchase it. And all of that stuff, just being on the shelf and being satisfied with that is a good way to see your product be eliminated from the shelf in a few weeks.
100%. Yeah. I think a lot of times too, the win is I got it on the shelf. I won. I'm done. Right. So, spike the football. I'm going to get some Kool-Aid. Right. But that's not the case. Your point is like, that's great. But now what? Because again, retailers are looking for help. They want some lifting too, right? There's only so much they can do. They have 12,000 items that they're responsible for inside the, the footage of their stores. And so it's really impactful for you to have that. Again, I go back to what I said, having those bullets in the holster like that. And data is certainly one that we're certainly learning a lot about. We're learning how to lose our data very quickly in certain manners. And we're trying to learn how to protect our data on our computers in other ways. So, data is a really important conversation. I think it's going to become even more important as the economy changes, as society changes, the world changes. Data is going to become something that I think more and more retailers are going to make. You may have an iconic brand that people love, but the data may support that it's not worth the shelf space that they're giving it. Yeah, in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And then to be able to take that information and turn it into creatively exercise or use that information to create messaging and creative executions on ads and sell sheets that communicate the message that you learned at the beginning. Correct. Right? Yeah. No, really a great perspective when you think about it. I love what you said. It's like, getting on the shelf is step one. That's, and there's a lot more steps behind it, right? That's not the touchdown moment. It feels like it. You want it to be, and I can believe me. I mean, when we started this organic thing and, my peer group, when there was nothing on the shelves and nobody gave a shit about any of it back then, every PO, any opportunity to get into a store. I mean, God, if the guy said, call me back, you felt like you just, won the lottery, right? Because you had an opportunity, but it was so much more after that. And it was a real wake up call for me. It's like, okay, now what? How do we where's the next item? How do we keep doing this? What's the feedback from your side? What are we hearing? Because there was no data. Data wasn't a thing, as like it is today, 30 years ago, right? It just wasn't. So to be able to keep those conversations going is incredibly powerful. It really is. I mean, I think brands have got to get out of this little tiny box of what they know. And I think that's a problem too, sometimes when it comes to marketing. I see this a lot of times with social media as well. People stay in the box of what they know. And if you present them something outside the box, there's like that fear of, I don't understand it, therefore I don't want to deal with it mentality, which is just a shit show for people too, right? You're limited by your own ignorance. Best way to say it, I think. Well, the interesting thing for me is you'll go on to let's say LinkedIn, right? Which is really a business platform. And you'll see posts. Wow, my product is delicious. Okay. Yeah. Great. It better be delicious. Otherwise it's not going to be on my shelf. But why should I put it on my shelf? Why should I carry it? So what we see happen a lot of times, right, is that they'll just use their consumer messaging for their business messaging, which doesn't really make any sense because the retailer doesn't I mean, they care, but they don't care that it's delicious or it's creamy or it's, got zing. They
No.
want to know, how are you going to help me build sales? As you pointed out, how are you going to help me do the heavy lifting? What information are you going to give me that can help me motivate my consumers to buy
Right.
more of this? Right? Because at the end of the day, our goal with that retailer is to help them get their bonus by moving more of our product.
Correct.
So
yeah, no, well, I love that. I love that motivate, right? How do you motivate forward? And I think that's a really important part of when you think about marketing, is the fact that marketing is designed to motivate. Marketing is designed to move the needle.
That's right.
And data is a part of that needle. You all have got quite an honor, and I want to bring this up because I think it's so poignant in what we were talking about what you all are doing. But you guys received Retail Tech's top 10 retail marketing service recognition. That's a big deal, right? That really is. I mean, it's got to be full, for 26, 27 years, you've been slinging hash out here in this industry. It's got to feel pretty good coming full circle in a lot of ways, knowing that the methods that you're doing, every day are winning, not only for your clients, but for consumers. Can you talk a little bit about that honor, what it represents, and really what it represented to you and the team? I think really where my question wants to lie, is what that did for you all.
Well, it was just terrific, and a terrific honor to be honored.
Yeah.
We do the work. Our greatest reward, while we appreciate the honors from magazines, our greatest reward is seeing our clients' sales grow. That's what we're really all focused on. If we can help our sales grow for our clients, that's really satisfying. But of course, it's just such an honor to be recognized by Retail Tech magazine. And as you mentioned, it was really full circle for myself and my staff to recognize the value that we bring to our clients, the innovative solutions that we bring, the creative execution, all of that. And all of us are very grateful for that honor. And it's been wonderful because, of course, it draws attention to us as a company. But I must say, it's my staff that deserves the award. I've got such creative people and talented people and smart people working for me and with me. And so it was great to see them be honored as well.
Well, no doubt. But, and I appreciate the humility of the response, but bottom line, you guys just don't get to the forefront, right? And, whoever brand you're working with is at the forefront. They're the ones, that's the poster child for your work. So you really are in the back. You're in the background a lot, right? You're the guy in the back of the theater that nobody really realizes is back there most of the time, which is great, which is your role, right? It's a part of what you all do. But to get that recognition is got to be, not to your point, client sales, keeping clients 26 years, that all matters. But this is great. That pat on the back is, getting that affirmation is pretty important too.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. But you're right. We always have been in the background. In fact, for the first 15 years in business, we didn't promote ourselves at all. Not once. We said, when our clients are successful, we will be successful. And that was always our motto, really, is client success equals our success. And I still believe that today.
100%.
But to have a magazine and our peers and our clients and everybody recognize our work and our efforts and our talents, it's a nice feeling, and to be able to take that magazine article that they published and frame it and put it up on the wall. It's good. Really nice.
It's important. That's important, right? It's no different. It's no different than, working hard at the gym, working hard to get that, to get that support and that thing back. I mean, but it also goes to prove that your methodology is working too, right? Let's be honest.
It does. And it also helps, when people are looking for an agency like us, to be able to say, well, tell us about yourself. When we can bring that up, it gives them more confidence. Yeah. Okay, you're not just telling us you're good, but there are other groups and magazines and people telling us you're good too.
It's like hanging out with the Kardashians. It's like hanging out with the Kardashians. You go up a level, right? Or down. It depends. It depends on how you want to look at it. Talk to me a little bit. I want to throw this question at you because I got you in the hot seat. What do you think the biggest marketing misconception folks have out there that need to address and clear up?
Oh gosh,
that's a big question.
There are many Many. Well, I'll list. Can I list more than one?
I don't give a shit. List 100. Go for it.
Okay.
Speak your mind, sir. Speak your mind.
Starting at 99. No,
Go.
I'm kidding.
I'm going to run and get a beer and come back, though.
Well, I guess, the one is the one I already brought up, which is, sales and marketing is the same thing.
Right.
They are not. I could do a whole podcast with you just about that. They're not.
I 100% agree with that.
Next is that, and we discussed this too, that, if we just do some consumer advertising, everything will be solved, right? Without any acknowledgement of distribution, understanding the marketplace, your pricing strategy, none of that stuff. We'll just advertise and the sales will come. They won't, and it's expensive. Now, does advertising work? Yes, of course it works, 100%. But everything else has to be lined up behind it. You can't just go straight to advertising. And finally, and this is a big one, and when I talk about this one, as I have with our clients, sometimes they have a sort of a surprise look. And that is this concept that is wrong. If we could just get 1% of all people who don't eat produce to start buying, we'd all be billionaires.
Right. Yeah.
This is like a friend of mine once said, hey, I've got an idea for an app for an iPhone. And if I can just get 0.1% of those iPhone users to buy it, I'll be making $1 billion.
Right.
Well, guess what? It's not easy.
No,
it's not easy. No. So ask yourself, why aren't they eating produce? Well, maybe some of the produce items, they don't like the taste. Mm-hmm. Well, how's marketing and advertising going to overcome that? Maybe some of the produce items, they don't have enough money to buy. How's your marketing strategy going to overcome that? It's not. No. It is so much easier to focus on people that have already committed to your product. Right. People that have already been buying your product on a regular basis. Maybe they're buying $10 a month of your product. Guess what? Get them to buy $11 a month.
Right.
Your sales will go up dramatically. And it's so much easier. Give them a new recipe idea. Give them a new usage idea. Tell them something about your product that they didn't know. Show them how they can use it with some other products. This is so much easier than let's get 1% of the people who don't eat to start eating.
100% agree with that. Oh, I say to people all the time, take your top 10 customers and get them to grow by 5%. Can you cover them? There's a question to go ask yourself, right?
Yeah.
Right. So grow from within, that's, I think a lot of companies do, and marketing companies don't think this way. It's like they feel like growing outwardly keeps them in a job as opposed to growing inwardly. I would much rather, you've already done the hard work of getting the vendor. You've already done the hard work of developing the relationship. Why not grow your top 10 customers by 5%? That would be a really good year at the end of the year, kids. That's pretty simple math to look at.
And it's so much less expensive.
I know.
The heavy lifting's been done already. They've already said, hey, I like your product. Tell me more.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that's where it comes into, again, not back to that sell sheet mentality. You've got to start to advance your skill set beyond perhaps what you see and think, and start to lean on data and start to lean on trends and start to lean on opportunities. And from that, you can create better strategies. You can create better ad opportunities, create better consumer engagement by putting your money, maybe there's just 7 days in the month of April that is the only ones that matters to consumers for what you do. But if you don't realize that, you're not going to lean into it. So I think it's important to look at it from that angle.
Yeah. And to keep, it's sort of like the whole marketing thing is like a continuous circle, right? We find out information, we take it, turn it into strategies, we turn it into programs, we execute on it, we measure how we did, and then we do a little bit of research, and then we go back out again.
Right.
So it's a continuous circle. It's just never a one and done.
I 100% agree. I love it. That's a great answer, dude. That really was. I want to pick your brain a little bit too, because we're in a different world, right? I want to talk a little bit about some trends that are happening right now. Okay. Just share your thoughts a little bit about, what may be happening in 2023 for these couple things, and, what the issues and opportunities. First one I'm going to throw at you is, let's talk about retail real quick. What do you think, and what are you seeing out there in the world?
Well, consolidation, obviously.
Yeah,
consolidation continues to happen here, and for that, it's important for the smaller retailers, the regional retailers, I'll call them. They're not small, they're huge, but they're regional.
Yeah.
To really have a point of differentiation. But
Yep.
that's also true for the supplier. What is, besides price, your point of difference for your products that you're selling? And that's really important, because as these chains consolidate, they're not bringing all the suppliers with them. They don't need 50 suppliers. They can, I rely on these two. Maybe I'll pick one from the new chain and I'll bring them over, but everybody else to buy, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So you need to be thinking about points of differentiation for your brand, and how you're going to sustain your brand through that consolidation, should you be one of the ones left behind.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I think this consolidation thing is just starting. And I think that the Albertsons deal is going to be very interesting to see how it plays out and what it does and what that does to everybody else. Because, traditionally somebody raises the bar like that, you go to 5,000 stores or whatever the magic number is they're going to have together. People are going to have to pivot, right? So you go into you go to PG&E and say, I got 5,000 stores. I want to buy shampoo from you. You got a big stick, right? And that's a bigger stick than a lot of people have. And that's going to be a game changer. But I also think you're going to see consolidation in the ag sector as well. I think you're going to see losing second generation. You don't have second generation farmers. People are retiring. You're going to see this, I see that happening. I believe you're going to see it in Salinas. I think you're going to see it elsewhere in the country as well. You're going to start to see this consolidation.
Well, you definitely will. Let me just say two things. You'll definitely see it in ag, especially among the smaller players that don't have the deeper pockets, or they can't say, I've got 100 acres or 200 acres or 5,000 acres to rely on. I've got 3 acres. Well, you don't have, you're not buying tons and tons of fertilizer, or, you're the smaller guy. It's harder. But something that I've believed for quite a long time is that look to the pharmaceutical industry in terms of what happened there. 20 years ago, maybe 25 now, they were going through consolidation. Right. Everything that we do in retail follows pharmaceuticals. And take a look at what's going on there. And I'm not trying to be political, but look at the power that they have now compared to what they had 25 or 30 years ago. That's not by accident. And as consolidation takes place here, look at the power that some of these chains will have and compared to the rest of the chains, as you pointed out. So look at pharmaceuticals, look at the history of pharmaceuticals. Whatever they're doing today, we'll be doing in about 15 to 20 years.
Wow. That's a big, bold statement, but I don't disagree with your premise at all. I mean, if you think about it, you're spot on. And if you take a look at pharmaceutical today, God, it makes up 75% of the advertising dollars on television today.
It's huge. It's huge.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane.
So for retail, I'd also say sustainability is important. And, retailers are into it. The consumers are into it and they're on it. And so if it's full speed ahead, and if you haven't gotten there, you better get there. Right. And then third for me for retail is pricing strategies. Paramount for retailers, paramount for suppliers. Again, know your place in the marketplace. And unfortunately, as in the past, just selling low price isn't always going to work, especially with sustainability being an important factor, and something else that I'll tell you about in a second. But go ahead. Yeah, no,
I agree with you. Price. We are so stuck in this country about being cheap, and then when it comes to our food, it is such. Cheap has a hidden cost. It is such a terrible narrative because we don't value food. We don't value food enough in this country, and there's a lot of ways to look at that. That you want to do another show? That's a whole nother show. I'm happy to get into because I talk about it all the time because I think it's really real. What about consumers though? Let's throw the consumer side into this, the trends for 2023, because look, that's the pocketbooks, right?
Yeah, well, it's going to be the same thing as retailers. It's consolidation, but different. When times are happy and flush and everybody's got a lot of money in the pocketbook, they have brands that they use or buy. And then look, here's a new one. I'll try that. Oh, and here's another one. I'm going to try that. But as times tighten up and the pocketbook tightens up, they start consolidating their choices. They start going towards the tried and true. And those experimental brands well, we'll just save that for another day.
Mhm.
So it's important that you beef up your marketing, make your consumers aware of why they should buy your product.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean, and it popped into my head while you were talking a little bit, there's some activity out the retail sector based on this economy where retailers are actually deciding to not carry certain things because of the price point. Not that the consumer's not buying it. They're just saying, hey, we're only going to carry this option of it because we think it's too expensive. That becomes dangerous too, in a lot of ways, especially for brands, because you have no say. It's just like you walk in one day, it's like, oh yeah, I know we were doing $3 million a year in business, but we'll see you next time. See it. It's just quick of an axe.
Yeah. And on top of that, there's been lots of research that shows if you carry too many brands, people get confused, don't buy as many or as much, and sometimes not at all. Because, if you look and you're looking for salsa, and there's, 90 items that you can buy in either the fresh or the jarred areas, center aisle, people just get confused and sometimes they just walk away. So in many cases, it makes sense for them the retailer to start paring back what they're selling. And what better way than to say, hey, I'm going to focus on, my price points here. Well,
you're seeing a lot of that today with businesses, with a lot of these layoffs that are happening now, right? It's a great time for big business to reset themselves. They can, first of all, they have the excuse of the economy, so they're not the bad people in all this, right? And they can cut the payroll down. I mean, I've seen it. I was sharing a story with somebody about a construction company that laid off practically their entire workforce back in the last downturn economy. They hired a lot of people back, but not at the same level. They really stripped the whole company down. It was really interesting to watch. But again, the economy's like, well, it wasn't our fault. The economy did it to us, right? So we can lift that heavy hand. And I think that's a lot of what people are looking at. I think it's a lot of what we don't think about. It's that scary boogeyman thing, but it's really a big part of what an economy does, and especially an economy that's not doing great, right?
Yeah. And that's why everyone out there needs to be thinking about these things.
Yeah, right? No, 100%.
Or have somebody that thinks about it for them, at least,
Yeah, 100%. Do you think there's anything? I mean, I know we talked about retail and consumers. We touched a little bit about the produce side of this business, as far as what 2023 is. Besides consolidation and some of these other changes, is there anything that, we didn't touch on there you want to throw on the table?
Yeah, there's one big thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really big deal. And it's not from...
Someone is at room front door.
Don't worry about it.
Thanks. This is something that I think is really a big deal, and it's coming from the EU, right? The European Union,
right? They
have a new set of laws there called Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, and that's
a lot of acronyms. That's a big acronym. A lot of
acronyms, but this is going to have sweeping. And I mean, absolutely sweeping impact on the entire supply chain. And it has the potential to reach us here. And let me tell you a little bit about what it is. It's a set of regulations that impacts the need for sustainability, the global economy, human rights, climate change, and overall encourage fairness. So, and it's any company with over 250 employees in Europe is being affected by this. But it also impacts their entire supply chain. So I'll just make it up, and I'm going to make it ridiculous here so that it's easier to understand. So you're selling some product in Europe, and so you have to make sure you're sustainable. The global economy is benefiting. You're meeting human rights initiatives, climate change, and economic fairness. But you buy cardboard from the United States. That cardboard supplier has to meet those same regulations. And that cardboard supplier buys glue from Mexico, right, to build the cardboard boxes. The Mexican glue supplier has to follow. And it's not going to be long before that exact same regulation finds its way to the United States and other places.
Yeah.
So to me, this is a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
And again, I'll just say it one more time so people can go and read about this. It's called the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive. Look it up. It will impact us, and it's going to impact your entire supply chain.
Thanks for joining the Todd-versation. And now, a word from our sponsor.
Hi, this is Gordon Robertson, CEO of Verdant Technologies. Thank you for listening to Todd-versations. Our innovative post-harvest solution, Harvest Hold Fresh, is a game changer in delivering longer-lasting produce from crop to cart. Our patent technology slows the clock, extending the shelf life of fruits and vegetables, helping to preserve them at their peak. By simply inserting a sheet of Harvest Hold Fresh into packaging after harvest, our solution works to significantly reduce waste, deliver return on investment, and offer robust sustainability benefits in the perishable produce supply chain. That's a winning proposition for the grower, the shipper, the retailer, the consumer, and our planet. Contact us today and let us help you change your fresh future with this one-sheet wonder. Harvest Hold Fresh from Verdant Technologies.
It's interesting because one side was like, okay, that's great, right? We want to make a better planet. We have to start calling bullshit on a lot of things.
Right.
But in the same token, knowing what this is a little bit, I kind of look at it, it's like the electric car thing we've got to deal with in California. Everybody's got to get into an electric car, but we don't have a power grid to support them. Right?
Well, that's true.
Right. And we don't want to talk about the conflict minerals it's taking to make the batteries, what we're going to do with the batteries when we get done with that. Don't worry about all that stuff. We just got to get there. And I think it's, one of those things when I hear about things like this, it's like, what is that fiscal impact going to be? How is that going to be? Is it, you have to go all in right away? Is it an ease-in process? How do we build it up? How do brands survive? You're a small brand. Boy, you talk about a heavy lift that could be, not that they shouldn't do the work. I'm not saying that, but the financial burden of what that work could be devastating to a brand.
And the thing is, right, because not only are you trying to meet those rules and regulations, but now you got to turn your back and look back at everybody supplying you and make sure that they're doing it. And if you've got this long supply chain behind you, it's going to take a long time to work with each of them. And what do you do if one of them doesn't make it? Then what do? You got to go find somebody else.
Yeah, that's a real challenge. I mean, look, at the end of the day, the logic behind it makes sense. I would be curious to see what the execution premise is, right? Because that's where the rubber meets the road. But I think that's so much of what we do. It's like, we love to go solve problems without figuring out how to solve them. I mean, we really do. It's like, great, we're all going to drive electric cars. We don't have the power for them, but we're going to drive them, right? And you're going to have to buy electric trucks.
We're going to build more houses. We're going to build more houses, but don't use any more water.
Right. I mean, it's goofy. I mean, and I get it. It's almost, a lot of this it's necessary, but it becomes a bigger feel good than it does a do good in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And that's where I think some of these things get a little bit dangerous, is that we don't consider the overall ramifications of what those decisions. Granted, the overall ramification of what trying to make changes is good. I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying getting from point A to point B is just as simple as saying we're all going to drive electric cars. It just doesn't work.
Right.
It doesn't work.
A lot of work. And you're right. And everybody's stressed out with the amount of work that they already have. Now load this on top. It's like double the work. So just be prepared.
You said something, I want to just touch on it really quick before I forget. You talked about doubling down. And I believe this to be true. When the economy is weak, I believe people need to double down and get more creative from a marketing perspective. When they go either talking directly to their customers, to their customers, or even to consumers if they have that big of a lift. Would you agree or disagree with that premise?
Oh, 100% agree. There's actually been a ton of research, independent research that's been done that says that companies that maintain or increase marketing during times of recession end up on the other side of the recession with more market share. And why is that? Because a lot of companies are starting to cut back. They'll cut back on marketing, right? They'll say, oh, I don't want to market now because I'm nervous. I need the money. Well, if you're not marketing and you're not getting your messaging out, or they're not getting their messaging out, what a great opportunity for you to go to the head of the class and announce what you're doing with no competition. And what did we say earlier, right? Is that consumers are consolidating their brand choices during these types of times. So what a great opportunity to increase your marketing spend, or at least maintain it, and you will end up, I think it's 3.5 or 4% more market share than you had going into this thing.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. This is not the time to be passive. It's the time to be aggressive, right?
That's right.
There's other times to be passive. I don't believe this is it. I want to touch on something about you personally, and I want to get into this a little bit because I love what this is about and what you do. And I know giving back, to me, I believe giving back is an incredibly unique opportunity we get as human beings. It can enrich your life, whether you're mentoring, whether you're giving back, whether you're donating time, even donating money, right? It's all a part of it.
That's
and
right.
I know that your efforts that you're about are in that same boat with me. Talk to me a little bit about who you work with in the group called About My Father's Business and what it is, and if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, it's a Southern California faith-based organization, and it's dedicated to helping the unhoused. We say they're not homeless, but they're unhoused.
Yeah, what's the difference? Does a homeless person care if he's unhoused or homeless? Isn't it the same thing? I mean, I'm just curious. I don't want to argue the point, but it's just like I'm shocked by that. What that means.
A lot of people who are living in tents consider that to be their home. If they're living in a trailer, they're in their home. So they don't consider themselves necessarily to be homeless, but they don't have a house.
All right.
So anyway, we are a group. We don't preach or proselytize. We don't do any of that stuff. We give food. We give clothing, we give supplies, we have events where they can come and get a hot meal. For all the holidays, we have hot meals. During the pandemic, we were giving away vaccines and things for them. And we do a lot of work with the city of Los Angeles. So we feel very fortunate to be able to do this and to help represent these people, because, they're citizens too, and they have all the rights and voting rights and everything that all of us do, but people sometimes forget that. And I would just say this organization was founded by Pastor Kathy Huck. That's Huck. Mm-hmm. And you should look her up because she is an amazing founder and the person who runs this organization. I'm fortunate to be the chair. But she does all of the heavy lifting along with all of the volunteers. And we've got so many volunteers. We've got chefs. We've got people just go from encampment to encampment. It's just a great group of people.
Well,
I feel honored to work with them.
Yeah, this is such a huge issue. And it's interesting to watch. You see people on the corner, it's traffic light. How many people don't want to make eye contact? How many people want to look away? How many people, but I think about all the great things that this country provides. And I think that we have veterans sleeping under a bridge is just mind boggling. Children. I just talked to somebody on my Lunchtime Hero broadcast talking about, kids that are homeless in the schools that don't have anywhere. I mean, they're struggling, and, school is all that they have to look forward to in their lives. And it's amazing that we look at this problem. We look at so many other problems first, and even problems outside of our own country before we start looking at these problems that we need to be solving inside of our own country. And I commend you. Tell me, give me just, with your whole experience and what you've gone through, and you're doing this now, what has this taught you, or what is this experience working with About My Father's Business? How's it shaped you a little bit? Because it has, you give of your time, or you give somebody a hug, it changes you some way, somehow. And you're doing a lot bigger lift than that.
Yeah. Well, I guess the things that really have, the one thing you become aware of very quickly is that homelessness is the result of something else. It's not
most of the time.
It's the result of something else. It's not the thing that we have to solve. Getting people into homes will be the result of solving other issues in their lives.
Yeah, well said. Yeah.
I guess the thing that impresses me so much is to see how many companies, how many people, how many organizations give of their time, give of their products, give of their money to help these less fortunate people that need assistance. I can't tell you how many, thousands of shoes we get sent to us, or sleeping bags, tents, all kinds of stuff. It's just, it's pretty amazing. And it's great to see an organization and a community pull together.
Well,
But
Southern
that's-
California needs it.
They do, but it's unfortunate because I think if I look into the future, the problem I see is we're spending billions and billions and billions of dollars on homelessness, but all these different organizations, and I'm talking government organizations, all go about it in a different fashion.
Right.
They don't pull their thoughts together, their resources together. We've been talking to the city of Los Angeles about creating a standard best practices. We know that there are homeless people because, well, they lost their job or they're poor. That's the easiest way to solve. Then we have people with mental illness, very difficult. People with drug addiction, very difficult. So how do we solve the problems for each of those groups or subgroups and help themselves to get back into society, and then building the home or building a shelter for them? Now, that's the easy part.
Right. Wave your magic wand. What would you, if you could just come up with one thing to wipe this problem clean, what would it be? That's a big, that's a big question. Yeah.
Well, it would be just that. It's that all the organizations would pull their funds together and we have a common practice. Here's what we do when we see people with mental illness. Here's what we do when we see people with drug addiction.
Right.
So that it's not spending billions of dollars to build expensive apartment buildings isn't going to solve anything.
No.
Right.
I know.
A lot.
Right.
If you go out and talk to a lot of people, they don't want to move into these places. We're happy here. And you'll see these people with on the streets in a tent, and they're hoarders. They've got just stuff everywhere. Well, they need help, a different type of help than moving into an apartment, because if they move into the apartment, they want to take all that stuff with them.
Correct. Well, and that's a big reason why people don't go into shelters, right? They either have an animal, they have their possessions, they can't bring them in with them. Yep. That's a big problem. But I agree. I love what you said. I think that is a very fresh and a very powerful perspective to get everybody together on the same. It's one of those moments where you order a couple of pizzas and a 6-pack of beer and you all sit together and figure out how to solve the same problem you're all trying to solve. Get the egos out of the room. Stop worrying about your donors. Your donors will follow suit if you're doing a good job, and come together and come up with a strategy that best serves the needs of all the people that are involved. Because your point's really valid, right? It's not, the mental problem is huge.
Right.
The drug problem is huge. Homelessness, is huge. It's a big problem, but it's all separate problems in a lot of ways. And they're not all, to your point, building a bunch of places for folks to go is not really going to solve what we need to get solved.
And it's so expensive.
I know.
It's crazy. I've seen some of these apartment buildings. It's $500,000 an apartment to build.
Yeah.
So somebody's making money.
Yeah. Well, again, it goes back to what you said, getting the right people, get all the people in the room with the same common goal, which is how do we fix this problem? Powerful. Right. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for explaining it in a way. And I think hopefully people will look in their own communities and ask themselves, do I make eye contact with that stranger at the corner? And if I don't, should I? How do I, it's a fair question to ask each other, right? It's a tough one. It just, you don't have to give them $1 to say hello. Right.
It's interesting because I used to be one of those people that would look away. Now I make it a point to say hi to people if they're sitting there on the street and you can tell they're homeless or unhoused.
Yeah. Yeah.
I make it a point to say hello.
Absolutely.
They're our neighbors.
Well, they're people too, right? And, we all started the same way.
That's right.
Yeah. No, good. So as we wrap up our time a little bit, anything we missed? What's next for you guys? What's next for Fusion besides, kicking ass, taking names, throwing ninja stars, doing stuff like that?
Well, no, that's exactly what we're doing.
Perfect. We summed it up.
Well, I think it's the same thing. The thing that I think makes us unique and special is we're always evolving. We're always trying to stay on the cutting edge of what's going on in grocery and business and produce. And we're always trying to evolve our what we offer, our services, and make them the best, the easiest. And whether that's a research or data analysis or our marketing or creative execution, we do advertising and PR, all of those things. We're just always trying to improve and make it better for our clients And it goes back to what I said earlier, when our clients succeed, we succeed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and we're getting involved with AI, right? Artificial intelligence. And that's going to be it's already starting to have a great impact on things.
That's going to be wild to watch that thing come to fruition of what it's going to mean. And, we're going to get to a world where we're going to know we want something before we know we want it.
Well, I heard a statistic recently that right now 90% of all information is held in the human brains across humanity. And in the next 30 years or so, or even less, I believe, we're going to go to about 49% of all information, and the rest will all be AI. Yeah,
I wouldn't doubt that. I would think, let Elon put a little Neuralink inside above your ear, and next thing you know, be surfing the internet, not even having to go online, just be looking through your own eyes at it, right? It's coming. No, look, the world's going to be, it's funny because you think about the world going forward and you think about the movies you've seen and these different, space and this and all. So it's like, yeah, well, it's not looking that crazy anymore. Some of these ideas from 30, 40 years ago, they're not that crazy today.
I know, right? If we can imagine it, we can do it.
That's what I think too.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a fun chat. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I think you're super informative. I really appreciate how you just rolled up the sleeves and shared with people, some details that they may not think about and some things to ponder as business. I think it's, I like to say you gave a nice masterclass today to a lot of people. So I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I love the conversation. And I do hope that everybody listening or looking in utilizes some of that information.
I think you're going to open up a lot of people's minds, right? And I think especially when we start talking about this economy, why we should be doubling down in an economy as opposed to, holding back the purse strings. I see it. I shake my head going, yeah, that's not your best choice, but it's your choice. Yeah. So I agree with you. I think it's great. Well, thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Come back anytime. I'd love to chat more.
Thanks. I'll see you next week.
Okay, done. Everybody, thanks for listening. We appreciate you listening to Todd-versations. Remember, go check us out on social media, TLC_Todd-versations. We're there on social media. You know why I'm on social media, Steven?
Why?
Because that's where the cool kids are, and that's where I want to be.
Oh, there you go.
That's where I want to be. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We appreciate you very much. Remember, go inspire somebody today. It's really easy to do. Give somebody a hug, give them a high five, tell them you appreciate who they are. Make a difference in somebody's day. You have that ability to do it. You're the only one holding you back from doing it. So go do it. I appreciate it very much. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Much love. See you soon.